Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us at the second annual Alaska Veterans and Military Family Summit. My name is David Chapa, and I'm the Executive Director for the Alaska Coalition for Veterans and Military Families. And today I have the pleasure of leading a panel discussion on rural and tribal warriors. Joining me today are six distinguished subject matter experts from organizations that provide services to rural and tribal service members, veterans, and military families. Our first panelist today retired from the United States Air Force in June 2003 with over 22 years of active military service. He holds a bachelor's degree in human services and has worked for the VA for over 17 years as a supervisory program support for fee services, the Chief of Education and Development, Executive Assistant to the Chief of Staff, Chief of Eligibility and Travel, and eventually Chief of Rural Health. In this role, he manages a statewide rural health outreach program working with Alaska Native health organizations, non-VA medical provider healthcare organizations, the Alaska State Office of Veterans Affairs, and veteran service organizations, and trying to provide and expand veteran access to healthcare wherever they may reside. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rick Epperson. Want to say hi, Rick? You might be muted. Okay, we still have Rick on there. Um, okay, he's having some technical difficulties, not a problem. Our next panelist served in Vietnam, serving as a heavy-duty mechanic specialist from 1969 until 1977. Afterwards, he worked for the Alaska Pipeline, loading tankers. He is a chief of the Valdez Native tribe and serves as a board director on the Alaska Native Health Board. He is also acting chair of the National Native Health Board, working on federal and state level veterans issues. Please join me in welcoming Chief William F. Smith.
Thank you, David. Just one correction. I'm no longer the chief of the Valdez Native Tribe. I'm a board member.
Board member.
But I would say it to you like this: Laishu Dukde Dahatyu. Hello, my name is Chief Bill, and I am a NEAC. And you're right, I'm a Vietnam vet, and I like working with all the folks here on the panel. They are a great help to taking care of our veterans. Native and non-native. So welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Our next panelist manages the Diné Naazbaa Partnership. I hope I pronounced that right. A program of America's Warrior Partnership. This program is the first community-based program dedicated to empowering the Navajo Nation's military veterans, their families, and caregivers. The program is currently conducting proactive outreach to the estimated 15,000 veterans living in the Navajo Nation to educate them on available resources and connect them with holistic support services. The program elevates the work of local veteran-serving professionals by bridging the gaps that exist between community service providers and national resources. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Inann Johns.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. She'e Inann Johns Ginishia, Tretnesta Nanishla, Kiani Bushichin, Kiani Dashiche, Tachini Dashinella. And I just would like to say thank you for allowing me to give a little bit of piece of knowledge that I have to share with each and every one of you. And I am grateful to be a part of this panel. And also, as you explained, I do connect individuals back to not just any individuals, veterans and surviving spouses back to the respective resources that are offered back to them out here on the Navajo Nation. I'm currently working with the Navajo Nation Veterans Affairs here on Navajo Nation. So just trying to do a little bit of help wherever we can. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us again. Our next panelist grew up on a family farm. Oh, he's not with us. Okay, next one, sorry. Our next panelist holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Information Systems from Bellevue University, Nebraska, and is a 23-year veteran of the United States Air Force who began his military career in 1981 serving as a communications specialist. During his service, he supported the research and development of long-range communications pertaining to the Global Positioning System and the Strategic Defense Initiative, and managed the deployment of the Defense Mediterranean Improvement Satellite Program. He designed and installed UN and NATO telephone systems and connected commercial air traffic control towers in the old Czech Republic. He also installed the first Alaskan bandwidth management network. In 2009, he was appointed director of the Office of Veterans Affairs by then-Governor Sarah Palin. Since his appointment, he has been responsible for the development and establishment of policies and strategic plans that directly affect all veterans, active duty, reserve components, dependents, and survivors in the state of Alaska. In this position, he has provided key testimony for 5 major pieces of legislation, the most critical of which was the VA Modernization Act of 2017 and the VA Mission Act of 2018. Since his appointment, he has provided critical testimony to the U.S. Senate on rural health care and helped as a member of the 13th Working Group to facilitate the establishment of a memorandum of agreement between Alaska tribal health agencies and the federal VA, allowing veterans to receive health care in villages all across Alaska. Recently, he served as the 70th president of the National Association of State Directors of Veterans Affairs. Please join me in welcoming Director Verdie Bowen.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be on here today. This is my second Zoom today, or actually the first one was, I don't even know what it was. You know how you go between all of those nice screens nowadays? I just pray that they all work. So I'm glad to be here with each and every one of you.
And we're glad to have you. Thank you for joining us today. Our next panelist has over 23 years experience in tribal health, including 13 years serving on a tribal institutional review board, including primary reviewer responsibilities, and has served as a co-lead investigator. She is a Nubiak and an enrolled tribal member of the native village of Kiana. I hope I pronounced that one right as well. She is a Native American Research Center on Health Fellow and received her Master of Public Health from Oregon Health and Sciences University. She currently serves as the President and CEO of the Alaska Native Health Board. Joining us from Germany this afternoon, please join me in welcoming Ms. Verne Boerner.
Thank you so much. I'm very humbled and honored to be here with you all and to be on this distinguished panel. As you have stated, I'm the president and CEO for the Alaska Native Health Board. The mission of the Alaska Native Health Board is to promote the spiritual, physical, mental, social, and cultural well-being and pride of Alaska Native people. It's a mission that I'm extremely proud of. I'm proud of the fact that it's broad-reaching and very open. And veterans are a truly honored population in our Native communities, Native and non-Native alike. And so I'm very honored to have some time with you here today to be able to share some of those experiences and some of the efforts that ANHB is engaged in to support veterans across Alaska and the nation. Thank you.
We're honored to have you. I'd like to thank all of our distinguished guests for joining this afternoon. Let's begin. I'd like to start with you, Verdie. If you'd like to tell us about a time this year when your organization served the military community really well. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties.
He's on mute.
There we go.
There
That
we
makes it easier. This past year has been really tough to provide services because of COVID. In a way, it hasn't been because of the fact that the governor virtually has asked us to stay open, whereas we've had our veterans benefits offices and stuff like that nationally closed down and reduced benefits or reduced access to those that have served. And we've continued providing services through claims and appeals and all those different unique challenges that each one of our veterans serve. The only problem that we've had this year that I can see that I see personally is the fact that we haven't been able to travel out to the villages all throughout the state, because that is really important in order to help people fill out those benefits forms. It's been much more of a challenge over the phone, just like today over this video process that we're going through now. It's much more of a challenge, but nonetheless, we meet the challenge head on and we continue to move ahead. This last year my office has probably filed an additional 10,000 claims that we normally would not see, because our service officers lost their offices inside the Veterans Benefits office because it was closed, and all of those members are telecommuting. We also had to set up a bridge in order to process those claims, and we did that in Janesville, Wisconsin. So we have to send those back there so the local people can actually gain access to those claims as we process them. So this year has showed us probably some of the biggest challenges we've had, but we've also had some of our biggest rewards. Over the last 12 months, we've had the most 100% awardees since I've been, since my appointment in 2009. So I think that we've taken the time with each one of the claims and have been able to walk them through individually. And so it's just, like I said, it's been a big challenge. So that's what's gone really well. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That's about all I have.
And I'd like to ask the same question to Inann.
Yes. One of the one of the things I'd like to consider is that we were able to partner up with a church from Phoenix and get some supplies donated back to us. And what we were able to do was to connect those individuals, those families back to those supplies and such. And then just doing that, and then along with that, one of the huge things that we are currently, we just got done finished with, was an event that we had hosted with Verdie Foundation from Phoenix, and then also the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. We were able to work together, all three of us, to secure and help out with representatives getting those veterans connected back with VSOs or VBCs within those areas, and then having the VSOs directly contact some of those veterans and surviving spouses, getting them connected and making sure that the connection is being made back with them. That's one of the huge takeaways I'd like to take from COVID, just being able to still find different routes on how to ensure that the veteran or the surviving spouse life is, because our mission is to build up the quality of life, for that veteran or surviving spouse with the Naazbaa partnership. And I feel like we may have made a small dent in that, and I feel quite proud of that. Just being able to collaborate with different individuals and then being open to it.
Thank you for that. While you were speaking, we were able to get State Senator Josh Revak on the panel. For those of you who don't know, he is the state senator for District M. Are you there?
I am. Thanks so much for having me. I will just say it is such an honor to be in a panel with such a bunch of distinct veteran helpers and folks around the state. I'm just honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. If I can now, a question I'd like to pose to Mr. Epperson. What is your vision for the work that your organization is doing 3 years from now to serve our military connected community?
Can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I had some technical difficulty, so we're going the back way. That's what they teach us military guys that served, and so I'm doing this through the phone as well. I think Alaska has led the nation for years of how to, of course, I represent the healthcare branch of the VA, and Verdie can speak to this very well as well. And the ability for the Alaska VA to be successful is to continue to work through the partnerships that we have. We can't have a VA clinic in every single part of the state. We can't deliver health care without the partnerships that we've established with the Department of Defense, with the private community, and most of all with our Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium that we partner with all the hub facilities within Alaska. So our biggest goal is trying to ensure that we enroll veterans for healthcare so that they can access their benefits. We try to get the word out so that veterans can access, do claims for service-connected disabilities, and then ensuring veterans are well aware of all the benefits. We do that through the partnerships and ensuring that we get that information flow, and we couldn't do it without them. And I'll leave the rest of the panel.
Thank you very much. I'd like to pose the same question to you, Ms. Boerner. What's your vision for your organization 3 years from now?
Renee, you're on mute.
There we go. So thank you. 3 years from now, we can't really start talking about 3 years from now without taking a look back at what has come before. One of the major areas that we are very proud of is the tribal sharing and reimbursement agreements that Rick had shared with that Rick had alluded or spoke about, just about the partnerships that we have. We are incredibly proud of the partnership that we have with the Alaska VA in establishing those, and those were established in 2012. And with that, the Alaska VA was able to spread its footprint from 6 points of access of care within the state to over 200. And we are looking for, and spread across the full 660,000 square miles of the state. And we are looking forward to building on that success. We have worked in several other areas of partnership in establishing pushing forward the VA Tribal Advisory Committee. That is a piece of legislation that is moving forward right now. I'm happy to say that it is hotlined. There's some technical aspects that are holding it, and hotlining meaning that it will be approved and become law. And so we look forward to utilizing the VA Tribal Advisory Committee to share priorities and programs with the VA and move forward on the priorities that the tribes put forward. We are happy to say that through the tribal sharing agreements, we do provide services to all veterans, not just Native veterans. And so that's another point of pride that we have with the Alaska Native Health Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Smith, I'd like to ask, what do you want the veteran community to look like 3 years from now as it pertains from your organization's purview?
From my organizations, I also wear many hats because I'm also on the Valdez Native Tribe. I'm a member of the Alaska Native Health Board, and I'm also the the acting chairman of the National Native Health Board. So as a veteran, I would like to see more of the rural health, the tribal veterans groups is going really strong because there are lots of veterans still out in the woods that still haven't come back to the table, because this is a different VA than when we come home in the 70s as a Vietnam vet, and let alone the veterans, our brothers and sisters that are coming home today. Yes, the VA gives them, the services gives them their out and their talk, but anyone that's ever been in the military can tell you, when you're ETSing, when you're getting out of the service and they're talking to you, you're only listening to a portion of it. It's only after you get out for a while and then you realize that your health issues, and I'll use myself for an example, it only took me 35 years to put in for any of my benefits from the Agent Orange exposure and because it's also a survival thing. Go help my buddy. I got 2 arms, I got 2 legs, I got 2 eyes, and I'm okay. Well, I thought I was okay. 4 divorces, 1 alcohol clinic class, and I'm still a kid in Vietnam 90% of the time. So more mental health is needed all over. And with this new COVID-19 and the Zoom, it's really good. So more rural health, and just like Rick and them said, Phil and them was able to come down to the Valdez Native Tribe to actually put on stand down because we're on the road system. Verne said he couldn't do it, go to the hubs because you have to fly. But on the road system, when the state opened it up, Phil was actually able to come down to Valdez to get more veterans signed up. And right now, just like we alluded to, it's taken a lot longer to get some of the claims processed, and some of the veterans are getting discouraged. But you also got to remind them that this is COVID and this is deal, and it will all come out in the end. So more collaborations with just like we're doing here, and also 907 vets and the Warrior's Heart. All those programs would be nice to make sure that the health and welfare of American Indians and Alaska Natives and any veteran and their families are taken well care of. So,
Thank you very much. And Senator Revak, I'd like to ask you the same question. Where do you see the veteran community, or what do you want it to look like 3 years from now?
Well, I would like to see, and I know there's been a big effort from many of you and Verdie Bowen's office, but I'd like to see all those veterans who qualify for veterans benefits in rural Alaska be found and be given every opportunity to receive those benefits. They've earned it. There's also a great economic multiplier that occurs as a result of all those dollars that can go into those communities. So it's really a win-win-win, multifold. I think we should put efforts to those ends. I love what the ANV, I forget if they're the ANVA or ANVC now, the Alaska Native Veterans Council. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to sit down with them, but I'm a big fan of all those guys. It's amazing to see them in action. They care deeply about what's going on. So I would like to see our organization partner more with groups such as yourselves and ANVC to make sure that we're utilizing all of our resources and opportunities in a way that complements what everyone else is doing. A couple things with our organization I'd like to see. We have some predatory, or at least what folks believe to be predatory operations. Some of them are nonprofits, has come to our attention a bunch. One is Veterans Benefit Services. There's folks out there who are charging veterans a good portion of their benefits in order to be able to apply. And like I've heard just recently, some folks don't know that there's all kinds of resources for free to the veteran through all of our veteran service officers and organizations and offices like our Department of Veterans Affairs here at state level. And so we might look at figuring out a way to at least make sure that veterans know that they have the opportunity to have those benefits for free. And there's several other things. Reciprocity for our military spouses. I think if we can find ways to make Alaska, as you all know, we have the highest veteran per capita rate in the nation, and certainly Native veterans are the highest. And so I think finding ways to honor that and finding ways to continue to make Alaska a great place for veterans to stay and to live. I am always open to suggestions and ideas. Please keep that in mind. Before I leave, I'll leave my phone number and I'll leave you with that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johns, I'd like to ask you, what are you doing right now that's working well for you?
The one thing I'd like to say that is working extremely well with me right now is being able to collaborate with different individuals from all different prospects. Meaning that one of the huge issues that we're dealing with right now is housing here on the Navajo Nation. Meaning that the home renovations is one of the huge requests that I tend to hear about, and being able to reach back out to the network and reaching to Jeanette about this and letting her know, hey, I'm trying to tap into another resource, because I went through the Native American direct loan through the Phoenix area. And I was trying to look for another breakthrough, so then the individuals are not having to come out of pocket for certain things, And what was really great about that was that I was able to tap into the USDA Rural Development Group, being able to connect the service member back with an individual within that department was a huge, huge thing, and being able to refer all those veterans and surviving spouses. And not only that, it's a free for all, so to speak. We're not only able to just target veterans and surviving spouses, but we're also able to help out those relatives of the veterans and the surviving spouses. So I really do like that. That's what's really working really well. And just like I said, being open to collaborating with different individuals and just seeing where we can go with that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Boerner, I'd like to ask you the same thing. What are you doing right now that's working well for you?
I have to agree that collaboration is the key to being able to pull together resources and those that have like-minded missions. The tribes that have signed on to the tribal sharing agreements have put forward and prioritized the veterans in their communities to help build this access. And in many cases, some of the veterans in those communities have not had access to healthcare in decades. And so I think, as Chief Smith has shared, reaching out and finding those, we have an estimated, and Rick can correct me as to where the number is actually now, but we have an estimated between 70 and 90,000 veterans in the state of Alaska. And I think we have about 35,000 of those that have enrolled with veterans benefits. So we have a huge charge before us to reach out to those veterans that are not currently enrolled. And as Senator Revak has shared, they have earned and they deserve these benefits. And so working with our partners, with the tribes and the tribal health organizations, working with the Alaska VA and the community members themselves. And I would love to hear and hope that Chief Smith gets to talk about tribal veteran representatives to help reach out to our veterans to get them enrolled and pull them into the fold. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Smith, do you want to take that cue and explain for those in attendance who aren't familiar what TVRs are?
Yes, TVRs are Tribal Veterans Representatives, where we go through some training through rural health. And a lot of them are nieces and nephews of younger veterans that are in the deals of trying to get their uncles and their grandfathers and everything else back to the table to let them know that it's okay to come back to the VA. And I use my era as Vietnam vets because, like Renee says, there is only less than half of them that are registered for their health care. And as this Stone said before, these are things that we have earned. It took me 35 years to realize it myself because I was making a living, I was doing everything, and I've always been proud of being a Vietnam vet because when I stood up at 17 to go into the military, it's because that's what I wanted to do. But as a TVR, Tribal Veterans Representative, to be able to bring to, help. And that's the one thing, when we first went to the meetings, we had a book that was about this thick. Now we just have a few, and to being able to operate the computers where tribal veterans can walk a veteran through the system, because if you hand a veteran a book like that, he's going to tell you where to go and how to get there. It's not worth it to him. But as the tribal veteran representative, being able to talk to them, or just being a spokesperson for any of the veteran services. I speak on the national level, and I had a gentleman in Oklahoma because he heard me speaking, and it was replayed on Stars and Stripes, which I thought Stars and Stripes was gone a long time ago, but apparently it's still alive. But he needed assistance. He was a Iraqi vet, and he was having a hard time in Oklahoma. And the bottom line is they took his leg, and they almost had to take his arm, but he is recovered right now. But even as a veteran, he was reaching out, and he's still reaching out to me when he needs me. And that's what us veterans need to do, is stand up for our brothers and sisters and let us know that we're here to walk through these dark hallways and through the deals with them. And TVRs do that too, to bring out their grandpas, their uncles, their fathers back to the table. So TVRs are very important. When we first come up and I took the class, there was a gentleman by the name of Buck that come up from, I believe, Rick, it was from Montana. And he said, one of you guys are going to have a flashback tonight. And we all listened to him. Well, I was that one that had the flashback. And we talked the next day, and that's how it's going to be. I mean, the young people that are TVRs are doing it to get their relatives back into the table, but it takes sometimes a veteran talking to another veteran that you need to do this. And I have some people that I tell them that you really need to go in there, and he says, I'm okay, I'm okay. 4 people behind him are shaking their head and say, Henry, no, you're not. But it's just, it took me a while too. There's some legal obligations when you sign up for some of the post-traumatic stress disorder. And one of them is our gun rights. You know, when mental health issues comes up, that's the first thing that keeps people away from the table, because they think, and as you know, up in Alaska, a gun to us is just another tool. It provides food for our families, and it's everything else, and you don't want to lose any of those gun rights. So hopefully that explained what a TVR is, because a TVR could be a nephew, a niece, a grumpy old veteran like myself. And my brother drugged me into it. I lost him in 2017. Rick knows about it, that Agent Orange finally got us all. Agent Orange had done what the North Vietnamese could never do. And it took him a long time for his lungs to go. So, and there are lots and lots of veterans out there that are in the same stage. They need the help, but they don't know how to get it. And that's what a TVR is there to assist them. And the TVR can only do so much till we change the rules and regulations, because once we get them to the point, we have to turn them over to a service officer, because the service officer is the only one that can follow his claim through the VA system. And, you know, ours is just like scouts. We just got to go out and bring them in one at a time. And sometimes you get discouraged that you don't have it, but then you get people like the gentleman from Oklahoma that called me up one day and says, I heard you on this broadcast with Cronkite News. Can you help me? Well, yes, I can. I can get you a hold of Tom Cole in Oklahoma and get you the assistance that you need. And I can help you at 2 o'clock in the morning. I can help you at noon. Call me if you need me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Epperson, did you want to briefly explain for those in attendance who might be interested in what's involved in becoming a TVR and how to go about that if they're interested?
Oh, absolutely. We do regular trainings, and Chief Smith just mentioned a few minutes ago the importance of this TVR program. We would not be able to reach out to a lot of the veterans that we do without this volunteer. It's a pure volunteer network. And recently, one of my staff, his name's Phil Hokinson, phenomenal young man. He's a West Point Academy graduate that the VA hired back in around 2014. And we actually did a WebEx similar to what like we're doing right now. We had over 27 participants from all over the state, and we did it virtually because, of course, with COVID, we like to do these in person, of course. We typically do them in Anchorage, and we were in the process of doing some outreach to go to specific areas, and that's kind of shut down right now. But anybody that's interested, I'll give my email address, which is rick.epperson, EPPERSON, @va.gov. If they email me, we'll get them on a list and we'll get them set up for training. And we can't do it without this network to get into these remote areas of Alaska. It's Chief Smith is a huge proponent. Senator Revak's very well aware. We've been doing these since about 2009, so it's our biggest benchmark program. So thank you for allowing me to speak to that.
Thank you very much. Director Bowen, if I may, a bit more abstract, what are some of the strengths and assets that you see in our rural and tribal communities, and especially among the veterans, service members, and families that are among them?
I think to answer your question, the best way to answer it would be the biggest strengths that we have in the state of Alaska is our veterans. And once we can reach one veteran, then we can reach another veteran and then another. And the same goes for the families. And the other part that we have that makes us even stronger is the fact that we're all accessible. From Senator Revak to Senator Sullivan, I think that you could pick up the phone and call those offices, and you're going to get a phone call back. The good thing about that is that Alaska, even though it's so big, it's actually small because we have shrunk Alaska. You know, the first way we shrunk Alaska was through the Alaska Native Healthcare Sharing Agreements. That was the best thing that we could have ever done throughout this state. The next thing that we've done is the TVR program. Oh my goodness. And Chief Smith, when you brought up Buck, I had to smile because we actually borrowed the TVR program from Buck to begin with. We took his books and put those out to all the people. The TVR program shrunk our state greatly because the TVRs in the communities know where those Vietnam veterans are at. You know, the biggest thing that I could tell you about veterans, sometimes when we come back to our communities, we no longer are visible. We become invisible people simply because of the fact we don't have uniforms on. We might wear a hat or something, maybe sometimes, but most of the time, most of us in Alaska with our blue jeans, extra tough boots, and flannel shirt, we look like everybody else in the community. There's no way in the world you're going to be able to spot a veteran. Now, I'm going to give you a secret. If the national anthem's played and you're standing up, you're going to spot the veterans because their hands is going to be on the seam of their breeches. I don't care how old they are, they're going to stand there and that hand's going to go right down to the seam of their breeches. And you're going to go, yep, there's a veteran, there's one. But that's our strength, is the people that we have in our state. And I'm just, you know, what makes us even more blessed is that when we give them a new idea, they say, oh, wait a minute, we can do that. And then we develop that idea, and it really becomes the strength of our state. And I want to make sure I get all the rest of your question here. Families, oh my goodness, families are the biggest support. I mean, without the spouses and the children, and we have to look at spouses differently, because when you see a man and a woman together standing in front of you and you're trying to file benefits, many times it's the woman that's the veteran. And so you have to make sure that you have to ask them collectively, who has served? because sometimes both has served, sometimes one has served, or the other one has served. But I'm telling you, the spouse is the one that holds the families together when the veteran or the active duty person is gone. And then when they come home, they're the ones that are holding all the pieces together to try and make sure that we get to our appointments and get to those healthcare things that we need to and file those claims. You know, I don't think a week goes by that I don't have a spouse drag someone into the office and say, this person can't hear me. Well, they spent their life in artillery. Of course they can't hear me. So it's the spouses and the children that come in and bring those people in. And then elderly, when they get way too old to take care of themselves or too elderly to take care of themselves or too sick, then it's the children sometimes that step in and become the caregivers. And we have to listen to them too. So those are the strengths that we have within our communities.
Thank you very much for that. Senator Revak, I'd like to ask you, have you seen any collaborative successes this year between your organization or any other organizations that specifically work with veterans, service members, and military families, and if you can, more specifically in rural or tribal areas?
So not this year. This year, of course, we were in Juneau for a good portion of it and jumped right into a campaign season. So I've been out of the loop a little bit, but in the past, I will tell you, it's already been said, but I will just reiterate, as I would travel around for Congressman Young's office and Senator Sullivan's office to the most amazing places I've ever been or seen with the most amazing people, we would meet with TVRs, we would see some of our service organizations and officers going and actively spending time, and Verdie's folks and Rick's folks and local veterans. I will just, as far as collaboration goes, folks like Chief Smith are just absolutely amazing. He couldn't have said it better. I almost brought a tear to my eye when he was talking, because it is that way. Veterans, especially those who don't want to be found by the system, they oftentimes won't communicate with folks who aren't other veterans or folks that they don't think understand. And I kind of get that. I was wounded in combat, and so I can understand some of those feelings. And so some of those successes have been really amazing to see and emotional to be a part of. I was in Unalaska for the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Dutch Harbor, and I saw this amazing. They had a circle where they had the evacuees from World War II in a room with some of the veteran survivors who had gone through. And if any of you know what kind of happened out there, the whole thing was just tragic. Japan attacked. The U.S. relocated the residents down to Southeast Alaska, and then there was a war in the Aleutian Islands. And so when they moved, anyways, there was just a lot of hurt, and I saw something. My point to all this is that I saw that there was amazing relationship building and closure in a way that brought folks close together. And I don't know what it was about that, but I thought that in terms of collaboration, there's a lot of opportunities still from wounds of the past where they might be able to be healed by coming together. And I don't know, I've just been thinking a lot about that. But I've seen some amazing folks sort of work to those ends, folks like Chief Smith, and there's several others. And it's been a really emotional thing to witness. So thank you to Chief Smith, by the way.
Thank you for that. As a brief historical footnote, the military conflict that you had just alluded to was actually the first time that the United States has ever been invaded by a foreign entity since the War of 1812, when the British burned down the White House. If I may pose the next question to Inann. What strengths and assets do outside organizations bring to our rural and tribal veterans, service members, and their families?
I believe one of the strengths are being able to tie back into helping those individuals, just like how, for example, for myself, how we're able to build that gap between those resources and the veteran themselves. And that's one of the strengths that I like to draw from, because I mean, essentially you can't really do it yourself, you know, and we don't really want to overload just one organization. We kind of want to spread it around so then everybody kind of gets a piece of the pie. You know, you don't want to be too, how can I put it? I guess not too greedy, so to speak. You know, you kind of want to divvy up certain things to different individuals, just because you can draw from a different individual on how they best work. You know, one person may be able to connect you with one person that's able to help out with in so many different ways. You know, and I kind of like that, where I'm not able just to rely on just one individual. I'm able to tap into different resources and getting them the help that they need, and just being able to relate to the veteran on a deeper level too, and speaking to them and understanding where they come from, you know. And it's just having to build up that quality of life for that veteran, and taking that time out and listening to what they have to say, because at the end of the day, you know, we're always, for a veteran, that's the person that's invisible, so to speak. You always try to get on a deeper level with somebody where you can actually understand them from that personal. I mean, we as veterans go through different things, you know, but at the end of the day, we all went through and raised our right hand, so we can kind of sort of speak to that, you know. And that's just a little piece. Thank you.
No, thank you. So the uniqueness or the variety of the services available complements the uniqueness of the needs of your veterans, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect, thank you. I'd like to pose the same question to Ms. Boerner, if you may, or if I may rather.
Yes. So when we look at reaching out, so there's different approaches. It depends on what your objective or goal is. If you're looking to bring in the veterans, the micro level, the TVRs is the way to go. If you're looking at the macro level and creating opportunities and change and introducing new policies to help the veterans, outside organizations offer that sort of greater breadth and depth and reach. And again, going back to the collaboration, so going from the grassroots all the way up to the National Indian Health Board or the Alaskan Native Health Board, and working with our congressional delegation, helping to connect the individual from the micro levels, from the ideas that they have, and bring it forward. So I had shared earlier about the VA Tribal Advisory Committee being an effort that we're working on, but we're also looking at the VA developing the Rural Native Veteran Healthcare Navigator Program. So it's just being proposed and established. I'm actually still learning about it. Rick may have some more information about it as well, but I'm excited to learn about what that program may be. So it takes ideas from across the nation and can expose our communities to those ideas, and we can look at implementing those, or vice versa, taking it from the community all the way to the national levels.
Thank you. Mr. Epperson, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I know in the interest of time, one of the big things that that I think is important for outside organizations to understand. As the chief of rural health in the Alaska VA, I get contacted many times about, hey, we have these services. And I think a lot of it has to do with reality TV in Alaska, where they go out into all these, you know, the police shows and whatever, and they have this interest about wanting to travel out. And we had an example last year, I won't say where an outside organization said they had set up to visit a specific area and had not contacted anybody. And I think one of the most important things that any, especially federal organizations or private organizations, can understand is the strength of government to government consultations in Alaska. You just don't show up somewhere uninvited. For example, Chief Smith invited us to Valdez. Although he's a TVR, he knows the people within the tribal councils that we do not show up somewhere uninvited. That is the Alaska VA. We put the word out. We work through our tribal veteran representatives, and I will tell them, please make sure the tribal president, council members know that we're coming, that we have permission, because if you just show up without the appropriate invitations, we treat that as that's their land. It's not our land. So make sure that we work with those folks. It won't be a success if we don't let the people know we're coming, what the purpose is to be there, and how we're trying to help them. Get the word out. We do that through our Alaska Native Health Board that Verne, Chief Smith, and many others are on. We get a lot of those requests from them. Hey, I need you to come here and do this. And then I partner with Verdie with helping us get veteran service officers when we can. Of course, this is pre-COVID, but I can't stress enough how we need to recognize that the majority of the state of Alaska belongs to the tribes that are out there, the 220 plus tribes, and with that we work with the folks that live there, the TVRs, the family members, all the things that we've discussed. So I can't thank enough the guidance that I've received from Verne and many other Chief Smith and others that go, here's who we need to contact, and this is how we'll make this successful before any organizations visit any area in Alaska. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Chief Smith, would you like to build on that? I'm curious if you have any suggestions or recommendations for those in attendance who would be interested in building or strengthening relationships between their outside organization and our rural or tribal communities.
Yes, thank you. Just like Rick says, education is one of the biggest things that we can do out there. We used to have service officers come to Valdez and they'd go to our courthouse, and they didn't even know that the Valdez Native Association, Valdez Native Tribe existed. And after talking with them, they now do check in with the Valdez Native Tribe when they come to Valdez, so we can make sure our veterans, and now that with COVID going on, the courthouse and the legislation office is closed, and we were able to utilize the Valdez Native Tribes big conference room to be able to have a place to do it. So it's education on the local level, and it's also education on the national level. As I talk to Congress and I talk to the House of Representatives as acting chairman of the National Health Board, I wear my uniform, my chief's uniform, and I wear my vest to saying, I am who I am. And I speak as a veteran. I also speak as the acting chair of the National Health Board. And a lot of that is education, like it was referred to. The Alaska Natives and American Indians are sovereign nations, and there is legal obligations, the trust responsibility that needs to be done, and it needs to be done properly. Just like Rick says, you don't come into someone's land and start talking. In the old days, we used to come into the land and ask permission to speak on the land. Even in Anchorage, when you go to the big village, you should ask and see if they can speak on the ancestral land that is there. So it's education, it's collaboration with whatever group that you're there to work with. So we don't bite, but we welcome anything that could help American Indians and Alaska Natives and any veteran in the state of Alaska or in the lower 48. Our brothers and sisters, and that's exactly what they are. They are our brothers and sisters, because we were brothers and sisters from another mother, because we served together. If you served in the child line, if you served on the firing line with any brothers and sisters, you have a bigger family, a bigger tie than your normal family. So education is the way to go. Just like Rick says, please ask to be able to speak. Please ask. And as Native organizations, I have no problem reaching out to rural health and saying, hey, can we have this here? And I don't mind going anywhere over the state of Alaska. I have gone all the way down to Homer to help Rick with stand down, just to help them get the veterans to come out. So got to give back to what you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to let our attendees know in these last 5 minutes, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, if you put them in the chat, I'll read a few to our panelists. In these last few minutes, I'd like to go back to Director Bowen. I'm interested in how COVID is going to be impacting operations long term. So by long term, I mean over the next year or so.
Well, so far, COVID over the next year, if we continue on in the same path that we're on, we'll still continue to reduce travel out to our remote communities. I'm one of those people. I'm from Cape Pole, Alaska, which is down on the Kosciuszko Island and southeast. And, you know, the worst thing that ever happened to us as children is someone come into the community with a cold. It would wipe out the whole community. I still remember as a kid how many people had the mumps that never had the mumps before because someone brought it into the community. And so for me and my staff and our service officers, they're not traveling anywhere that I have a feeling that they're going to take COVID to another community. The worst thing that could happen is that sure, we want to make sure that we have 100% of their benefits out to each one of the communities, but I definitely do not want to spread this disease any further than we have to. And I do believe that sometime around February or March timeframe, we're going to have an inoculation. And I think that will at least put us in control of the virus. And once we can get control of the virus, then we will turn back on our travels back to the communities and we'll start opening our programs back up again. But it'll only come after that time. The only other piece that I have to that is that if I do have staff members that won't get inoculated, they're not traveling. Just like I go to the immunization clinic before I travel to any communities in the state, and I make sure all my shots are up to date. No different than being in the military. I used to swear that when I left the military, I'd never get a flu shot or a pneumonia shot or any of those other things. I still get them all because, like I said, I don't want to be the person that's known in Quig or Alakanuk for bringing something in that does not belong there. And so that's my vision. I believe that if we do this smartly, we're going to win. We're going to continue to process claims, though. We are still doing that, whether it's over the phone, whether it's through Skype, whether it's through Zoom, whether it's through WebEx. We're still processing all of our claims with our veterans. We are still meticulously going through those. It means that we're having to do a lot more work in my office than what we normally do when it comes to the claims. It's, you're not processing them out pretty quick because you're having to assume things, and you cannot process a claim without seeing the person sometimes. But it's just taking us a little bit longer, but we're still going to continue on. But like I said, we will hold in place until we can get this thing under control.
Thank you very much for that. I would like to thank our panelists for joining us today. It was a very humbling, it was a treat for me to hear all of you speak. I would like to thank all of those in attendance for joining us this afternoon. I would like to remind you that if you haven't done so, to upgrade your Summit membership to supporter level. If you do so, we'll send you a Coalition hoodie and a Coalition coffee mug. Plus, you get the satisfaction of knowing that you are purchasing food and supplies for homeless, at-risk, and low-income veterans and military families. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at david@akcvmf.org. And I hope to see all of you tomorrow for the second day of the second annual Alaska Veterans and Military Families Summit. Thank you all again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
David, can I say one more thing before we go?
Absolutely.
I really want to say that the rule changed as of January, where a veteran can gain access to the military posts, has really got the interest of some of the veterans out there. So that is one of the things that has actually worked to the point where I have had a couple of veterans come up and says, I think I'll try it now, because access to the commissary and to the PX and being able to do some of the things has really changed it, where it was supposed to be just the retirees, but now the veteran can do it if he's got himself his service card. So I really like that change. When you say things that has changed, that has improved the deal, that's one of them, and that's just a perk. But if that is what it takes to get the veteran to say, hey, I'll come in, especially if they come into the big village and able to go to Fort Rich and Elmendorf. I'm old school, so whatever they call it, K-Bear now or whatever. But Fort Rich and be able to go into the commissary is very important. To one of the perks that will get a veteran to sign up for his benefits. So thank you for letting me say that.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everyone.